Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I'm your host, Kevin Wallace, and before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Streetside Brewery. One of the best, nay, the best Cincinnati brewery you will find in Cincinnati. They are located in the historic Columbia-Tusculum neighborhood at 4003 Eastern Avenue with one of the coolest venues you can get to. And I mean coolest in that it's relaxed. It's a nice, easy environment. The patio is great. The beers are flowing. And it is such a really, really cool spot to be. It's one of my favorite places to just go grab a drink after work. Always a good time there. And maybe the best part about Streetside is the number of events that they are doing this week. On Friday, it's the Brew Cause for the Hub, where they are doing a night of fundraising for the Cincinnati Recycling and Reuse Hub. Really good cause there from 6 to 9 on Friday. Then you got live music. Tim Snyder from 3 to 6 on Saturday. Kyle English from 7 to 10 on the patio. Again, on Saturday. You got Jim Kelly doing live music from 3 to 6 on Sunday. And that evening on Sunday is karaoke with Pascal Karaoke. Awesome events happening over at Streetside. Check them out. Or if you can't make it to the tap room, go buy a case at wherever you are buying your next beer. Enjoy Streetside. A huge thank you to Streetside for sponsoring this and so many other episodes of the Postcast. And on this episode today, while it is true that there was not a whole lot of FC Cincinnati news breaking this week, there was quite a bit of news that did come out this week around the world of American soccer, not the least of which was Gregg Berhalter out as the United States men's national team manager. Where does the federation go from here? We have a good lengthy conversation about that. There was also some fun stories involving Steven Jimenez and DeAndre Yedlin this week. Some good stuff to talk about there. In part 2, we answer your Patreon questions, including the best and worst food we've seen at TQL Stadium. And then we finally wrap it up at all in part 3 with intern Luke helping us preview the Charlotte match this weekend. You put it all together, you got yourself a Cincy Postcast. Joining me to talk about all of that and more, I am joined once again by the one and only Grayson. Grayson, how you doing tonight?
Doing all right. I'm tired of carrying this stupid podcast.
The dynamic is definitely different with 2 versus 3.
Especially like with nobody saying the dumbest thing you can think of. It's hard to kind of force in those like humorous moments that make it like interesting and unpredictable.
The Chief did tweet out earlier this week to start a petition to, I think, abolish the Olympics because he was knowingly going to Paris during the Olympic time period. That's the Chief I know and love.
I did not expect to hear him join the No Olympics movement, but if I know Chief, the second that it's no longer an inconvenience for him, he will not care about it.
Oh, man, we miss him. Him and Mrs. Chief gallivanting about Europe at this moment. Yeah, no, it's just, we are missing something without Chief, but we will suffer through. We are lucky enough that this week was actually a fairly quiet week on the FC front. Wasn't a whole lot going on there. So yeah, I don't know, Grace, where should we take this episode? Where should we go with this one?
Let's start on a positive note. Wish DeAndre Yedlin a very happy birthday this week.
Yes.
And Carter had a nice little human interest piece about the Yedlin family and how they're settling in to Cincinnati. I do think that it was a limited hangout of maybe Yedlin had poisoned Drake Callender when he stayed at Yedlin's house. And that's why we were able to get 6 by him. And it was just a nice thing. Which said people are going to ask questions about how Yedlin got access to Drake. Let's put out that they're friends. And that just kind of solves the problem.
We'll get ahead of it. We lean into the incriminating evidence is now the alibi. We're good. We're good. You know, a different podcast might say that Yedlin introduced Callender to Cincinnati chili, but we're above such insults to our city's great cuisine.
I think, if anything, you move quicker after Cincinnati chili.
That's true. High in protein. It's good. Like it's an ideal training meal.
I had a coach in high school who would not let us take restroom breaks except for like predetermined moments. And he would just say, well, you have more energy when you have to pee, so you should be running faster.
I mean, to an extent, I don't think that's what your body's focus is on. I like the logic. It reminds me of and I don't even know if this is real or not, so I apologize if I'm playing into the fake news here, but there was a Facebook post from a high school football coach in Texas making the rounds that basically said, your kids are all pansies for wanting water breaks. Nobody's ever died of the heat, which I really enjoyed, a high school football coach sending that out to families.
Is that related to like the sun has been here longer than us? If you think the sun causes cancer, you are, you're buying into the deep state or whatever.
I've really enjoyed the anti-sunscreen movement. It's really fun. Like, it feels like people are inventing more insane causes just to see if they can get it going. The sunscreen causes cancer is so good. I love that. Because nothing has changed in terms of our exposure to the sun in like 100 years. Like, we're definitely not wearing hats anymore. We're all wearing the exact same style bathing suits that they were wearing 100 years ago. Nothing has changed whatsoever there.
And yeah, I remember like my first time in Hawaii. There was a woman with a beach stand, and she I feel like it worked. I feel like she worked for the hotel, but she was selling various beach products, and some were like non-toxic sunscreens or whatever.
Right.
And she had like crazy website printouts just like taped up on her booth. And she's just like, see, like, this is all the literature that says like your sunscreen is like bad for you. And that was my first exposure to it. And I'm open to the idea that like mass-produced sunscreen has stuff in it that's bad for you.
Sure.
In fact, I don't want to play fast and loose with the science here.
Right.
But just like with basically anything that's mass-produced or mass-consumed, I kind of assume it probably does.
Yeah, question should be asked.
I do know what happens to my skin when I don't put even like this terrible toxic sunscreen on.
Right.
And it's at least an immediate worse thing.
Right. Oh my God. It's like, okay, this one has a 0.5% chance of causing the thing. The other one's got a 80% chance of causing the thing. They both could potentially cause the thing. And if that's where your analysis ends, so be it. But there's certainly degrees of risk that if you do want to go one step further, makes it a fairly easy determination.
Well, the entire insurance industry's business model is that people have no ability to assess risk on their own.
Right.
So...
Yeah, I Is there an insane conspiracy theory that we could start? I've always wanted to be a peddler of some sort of fake news. I feel like that would be fun. I don't want to like hurt anybody, but I would like to cause a ripple. I don't know how to thread that needle.
Yeah, so this kind of bleeds into the next thing.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to talk about,
yes,
to be
it does.
honest, because I'm trying to think about something like soccer related specifically.
Okay.
And we've touched on it previously, but it's like the world that some people online have constructed of like the cast of characters within the United States soccer writ large.
Yes.
And what their various roles are and who is responsible for what thing and whatever. It's a bit strange.
Yeah.
So you can maybe do something with that. Like I kind of toyed with the announcement that that Ledesma came back to work for FC Cincinnati.
Yes.
I tossed a little bit of a takeout. It didn't really go anywhere. I was hoping somebody would like
get
latch
mad
onto it. Maybe somebody did. Maybe somebody did, and it's somebody I've already muted. But it was just like, well, it's notable that all these former players coming back were signed before the current regime. And it just shows you the continuity of culture that Jeff Birding has built that people just don't want to leave.
Ooh.
And like, I think that we could do something.
I've got it.
With that.
I've got it. So if you want to play up the Birding is the secret evil one and they're doing battle on the inside against him, Birding is hiring unqualified loyalists to stuff the front office with latchkeys in an effort to, when it comes time to force out Albright, because Birding is jealous and thinks he can do a better job than Albright, that there will be a groundswell of support within the club to do that from community liaisons and youth coaches and whatever else.
And I think the flip side of that is that when Birding was the GM during the USL years, basically during the USL years, the team was winning.
Very good.
When he gave up the reins to first Koch and then to Night Camp and let quote unquote soccer people make decisions, the team was in the gutter.
Didn't go on.
And he made it clear that when he hired Chris Albright, that there was going to be a soccer president.
Yeah, we broke the news.
There was no soccer president.
We broke the news that he was stepping down, and the plan was that they were to hire somebody. Yeah.
There's no soccer president.
Damn.
Jeff Birding is the shadow soccer president. He's back in charge, folks.
Step aside, Lagerwey. Step aside, Bezpachenko.
He just very graciously is no longer in the limelight, right? Like, he doesn't want to take credit for it because he knows that how people will feel.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to. It's like when Obama like secretly increased everybody's withholding.
Yeah.
Because that was like the Cass Sunstein nudge to like get everybody to like act a certain way, but you couldn't tell them that you were doing it.
Of course.
So he didn't get the political bump for it, but we got like the benefit as a country. And that's the same thing that Jeff Birding is doing right now.
Wow. So I think what we're actually asking for is Jeff Birding to GM the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, as long as he's keeping his hands very active and involved, you're in a good spot.
If Jeff Birding was in charge of the U.S. men's national team right now, would it be a longer or shorter coaching search than what we will get under Matt Crocker.
Well, it took Matt Crocker 8-9 months.
Yeah.
for Berhalter to be back to replace himself.
To be rehired. There was an interim manager there. It's not like they said, oh, end of your contract, and then a month later before anything happened.
There were 2 interim managers.
There were 2 interim managers, one for like a week, and then
It took Birding, acting on his own. What, 2 months to replace Stom? 3 months?
Yeah. Nightcamp
2
and
2 months.
Stom. Yeah.
Well, Nightcamp, it was like days.
Oh, right. Chris Albright might have been in the exit interview with Nightcamp.
And Jeff was the one who fired Stom.
Yeah.
Albright wasn't officially in yet, so
Damn.
Once again, making the hard decisions, taking the blame, and leaving us to share in the glory.
Wow. Jeff is Q confirmed.
He's Michael Flynn.
He'll do an interview at some point with Pat Brennan. It'll be on video, and there will be the post Cincy mug on the bookshelf behind him, and then we'll know. That's the tip. Well, we should talk about it. The U.S. men's national team today, when we record this, officially let go of Gregg Berhalter in the least surprising news in what would be a normal situation and world that we lived in. It's shocking that it took this long after the Copa America. Look, I'll say for where I stood with it, I didn't hate the World Cup experience with Berhalter. I thought it was a tougher group than people ever gave it credit for. And it was an extremely young team that got beat by a really good Dutch team. So be it. I could understand the argument for keeping him on afterwards. And then all of the stuff with the Reinas came out, and it was insane to bring him back after that. Like, it was, to me, that should have been the end of it. Even if the Reinas and Gio and the players were okay with it, I think it's still too weird of a situation, especially when, for most people, it was a coin flip at best to keep him after the World Cup. Most people wanted him gone after the World Cup. And then to lay an absolute egg in the Copa America, one of the big tournaments that has been circled by this federation as a potential launching point for the sport and for Major League Soccer and everything else in this country, to absolutely ruin that is kind of unforgivable, and almost at the level, I say almost, but almost rising to the level of not qualifying for a World Cup. He should have been gone immediately. I don't know. Grayson, what thoughts?
Well, so I actually think maybe the exact opposite of everything that you've said.
This is great. Continue.
So I don't think the World Cup was good enough. Like, they got the pants beat off of them against the Netherlands, and it only looked better than it did because of an extremely fluky Haji Wright goal. They did not look good enough against Wales or Iran. And the World Cup was a nice opportunity to just cut ties and move on. Like, I think you saw what you saw.
Yeah.
Then when the stuff with the Reinas came out, you almost have to keep him.
Explain that.
You can't let like a player's parents do a palace coup
Okay.
on your coach.
I see.
And essentially blackmail the coach and his family and the federation into him like losing his job because their injured son who doesn't play for his club team did not get as many minutes as he thought he should in the World Cup. That's like, nobody's entitled to minutes in the World Cup.
Right.
Like it. Okay. So, but moving on from that.
Wait, real quick, just to defend myself for one moment. 100% agree with you there. I meant more Berhalter going to that whatever power leadership conference and basically spilling the tea to a room of 250
that was
people that didn't
bad.
need to have that. Yeah.
That was bad. And it is like kind of, it's one of the problems I have had with Gregg is he's like a LinkedIn guy.
Yeah.
He's like a LinkedIn guy who is like one of those like CEO types who's like, I'm not responsible for anything except I'm just being like a leader. Right. And
these results aren't on me. I'm just here to lead the people that get the results.
And you really you rarely saw from him any recognition of like things he could have done differently.
Yeah. He never takes accountability. There's always an excuse.
But that does not make him unique among people in charge of things.
Or even good soccer managers. Jose Mourinho has never done anything wrong, according to Jose Mourinho.
Right. Yes, exactly. So, but then like once they let him go and they're doing this search, now you can't bring him back.
Right. You that was
But
it.
they did. But they did. And it was like they brought him back, but then they didn't have him coach the 2 summer tournaments for some reason.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. They let BJ Callahan run the Gold Cup, I think.
BJ ran Nations League and Gold Cup.
That's right. They happened,
which is when BJ became like the first Q of US soccer, when people began to like lionize BJ Callahan because they won a couple of meaningless friendlies and did as well as Gregg had always done at Nations League.
Yes.
And then lost to Panama in the quarterfinals of Gold Cup.
Makes you think.
Yeah. So, I mean, so.
But Berhalter was doing nothing at that time. He had no job. It's not like he had gotten hired by a club somewhere to even be an assistant, right? Like, he's doing nothing. It's his coaching staff are the interim coaching staff. They're the players that haven't changed really from the pool that he was working with. It was insane that he wasn't immediately brought in to coach.
And it was a member of his coaching staff. Well, the second member of his coaching staff as the second interim coach. Like, so it's not like they're even playing with different principles and we're trying to see how they do,
right?
You know, under a different management style. That would have made sense. Like, that would have been a thing like, oh, we're going to hire somebody with a different management style.
Right.
Right. And see how that, but I don't see how you do that like multi-month process and just end up with the same guy and then fire that guy in a year.
Right.
It's literally, I believe it's been less than a year since Gregg got back in control.
Yeah. We're right at a year, give or take. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Copa America results were bad for sure.
Yeah.
I would not say they were of a different kind than Gregg had gotten his entire tenure.
Yeah.
Like there was no reason to believe going into this tournament they were going to say beat Uruguay.
Right.
And they have lost to Panama before in recent history. And that was without Tim Weah going in and, you know, punching a player in the back of the head kind of for some crazy reason.
Yeah.
But I don't even buy that like I don't even like buy that as an excuse because I mean, it is like it is and it isn't an excuse in the like in the micro. It's an excuse, but not in the macro. Like the macro, it doesn't change anything about like whatever was going on.
Right.
Right. But
you could even make it a coaching problem because it's a lack of discipline. Their heads weren't ready for a physical, contentious game, blah, blah, blah. There's plenty of ways to make that the manager's fault.
Sure. And what this comes down to is the U.S. soccer, after the last World Cup, they did, or maybe not, like, I think it was after the last World Cup, they did like a restructuring. They let some people like Brad McBride go.
Yep.
Because they made some changes to how roles were. And they hired our friend, Sportsology, to find them a sporting director.
We've got to get hired at Sportsology. It looks like the easiest gig in the entire world.
It has to be. It has to be basically like they've got pictures of every like major soccer owner and executive from their time on Epstein Island.
That's it.
And it's just like, you have to now give us money every time you have a vacancy.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you the dumbest person that we can possibly find. So they went to Sportsology and they got a guy who was on his way out at Southampton with, I don't know if he had any experience at the net. Maybe he did. I don't know. I did not know him.
Yeah.
And apparently he was like at the Euro during Copa America. So he had to come back to the country after we got knocked out of Copa America to deal with the coaching thing.
Brutal.
And it's just like, he's just wasted time. He's just wasted time, you know? Like, we're halfway between World Cups at this point, and he's got the same coaching vacancy that he like has basically had since the last World Cup ended.
Yeah.
Like no progress at the top of the team. And it just feels like incredibly incompetent. And I forget one of the articles that I read. One of the articles I read was basically like, it was like, I'm going to say the uncharitable version of it first.
Yeah.
It was basically like, he thinks he'll do a good job this time. But it was like, you know, after being in the role for like more than a year, he feels like better equipped to assess all the factors and stuff. But by all accounts, they had some weird personality tests that they were doing last time. Like Jesse Marsh went on a podcast and said they like locked him in a hotel room and gave him like 36 different scenarios or something about like whatever. And you know, it like rubbed him the wrong way because at least from his perspective, it seemed like kind of a crazy thing to put somebody through. And he's somebody who had, you know, coached at Austrian Bundesliga, German Bundesliga, Premier League. Like, you can say whatever you want about his results there, but I think if something strikes him weird about a coaching interview process, he is experienced in interviewing for coaching jobs.
It's also,
I guess, all I would say.
It's just an insane process to put, like, literally, if not Bruce Arena, the most successful American soccer coach still going right now.
Right.
Like,
could you imagine, like, it's such a consultant driven process.
Yes.
It is such a consultant driven process. And, you know, there's a time and place for all that. But so at some point in time, maybe the best way to find a coach isn't to like put like a light up in somebody's pupil with like a little camera that blows up their pupil really big. And you're like, oh, if you're walking across a desert and you see a turtle on its back, the turtle can't turn over. What do you do?
Like, right. Take 18 Myers-Briggs tests, and then we're going to ask you to guess the answers you gave us on the first one. Yeah. Oh my God. Crocker.
And I'll be honest, I'm not a Gregg guy.
Right.
I'm not like a Gregg out guy.
Right.
Like,
That's how, again, like that's how I was going into this. Now, I am on record. If you go back and listen to a Knifey Lion radio episode from 2019 when Venezuela played a friendly in Nippert Stadium.
I guess I'm a Gregg out guy, but like not because of any personal hatred, just based on like the history and process of what's happened since the last World Cup.
You're not
right?
mocking
like,
up Gregg Berhalter as Osama bin Laden and posting it on the internet.
I think at various points in time, the only decision was to fire him, but then at other points in time, the only decision was to keep him.
We just exist between those points.
It's like after the World Cup, he's fired.
Fire him.
But wait, the rain is blackmailed. Got to keep him. Oh, but you already fired him. Well, just keep him fired. Nope, you hired him again.
And then, okay, you've hired him. He should be in charge of this tournament. Nope, you're not putting him in charge of the tournament. Then you don't need him. He's already proven he's not needed. Crocker, by the way, I did pull up his Wikipedia page, which is shockingly small. He's Welsh, which I would not have guessed. He's Welsh. He worked at Southampton from 2006 to 2013, which I will say sort of the golden years of the Southampton Academy. Produced a lot of really good players. The big one on his on his highlight reel is Gareth Bale. But weirdly, he left them briefly to join the actual English FA, where he was the head of development teams in England before returning back to Southampton in 2020. So kind of a funny guy, never played professionally. Not that you have to, but just an unusual thing to see sometimes. He was the academy manager at Cardiff City before eventually joining the English Football League as its youth development monitor and then joining Southampton. So he's had a weird career.
I am curious what a sporting director of a national team does other than hire head coaches.
Yeah.
And then if that's your only job, why does this get outsourced to like consultants and stuff? Why not just hire somebody from the consultancy to be your sporting director? That's just going to make the decision anyway.
Or just don't have a general manager and hire the consultants when you need them, when the need arises.
Why can't JT Batson hire the consultant?
Why can't the American Outlaws hire the consultants? Like, why do you need a higher up person to like? It's.
I don't need a full-time salary. Just give whenever you need the consultants, go through me.
Yeah,
I'll retain them.
Perfect.
Just give me 10% of whatever you're paying them.
Hell, I'll go a step further. I'll give you the 5 names they'll give you. I'll give you 3 good MLS managers, a pie in the sky manager that has managed in Europe, and I'll give you 1 absolute wild card who has managed like 38 national teams over the last 40 years. And that'll be the roster you get to pick from.
Okay. So I think we probably most of the listeners too, kind of at least directionally agree that Gregg had to go.
Yeah.
That's only step 1, right? Step 2 is you have to replace him.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you hate your job, so you quit. And it's good that you quit. But like, that doesn't mean you suddenly have a really good job.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you still have to get the job you can get.
Yeah.
So it's like, who's got needs, who fits your resume. And, it's really exciting to think like, Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah.
Is going to come, coach us.
He'll love it.
He's going to love coaching the worst players he's ever coached his entire coaching career.
Didn't he
as a group?
Right. I mean, some of those Mainz teams back in the day were probably still better, frankly.
Didn't he win the Bundesliga at Mainz?
Did he ever win the Bundesliga with Mainz? I think he just kept getting them promoted. He actually kept getting them promoted and then relegated. It was very funny. He led his local club to being a yo-yo club, which was kind of an improvement for them.
So anyway, so he's going to come and he's going to no, he won the Bundesliga at Dortmund.
Yeah.
But
which,
whatever.
okay, he wasn't like, didn't he like not play Pulisic? Like, didn't rate him? I seem to remember Pulisic.
He gave Pulisic his debut, didn't he?
He did. But I always thought
Pulisic was like 17.
We've seen other 17-year-olds at Dortmund be integrated pretty regularly into the squad.
Sure. But so yeah, you have Klopp, who I assume would be extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And also like doesn't fix your other problems, like how your federation is run, what your player pool looks like.
Yeah, right.
I mean, who? So let's say you get a manager from Europe.
Right.
That guy's not going to have any familiarity with MLS.
Right. Probably a bias against MLS generally.
At least initially, what different players is he gonna call in? Right?
You could potentially, a European manager might say, hey, let's bring back like 4 or 5 old heads just to instill the culture. Not unlike what Noonan did with a couple of his guys, but maybe a Guzan shows back up. Maybe Yedlin shows back up or something. John Brooks shows back up. Guys that were like cast out because of weird personality decisions. Yeah. You might do something like that.
But you know, the other names being thrown out are Steve Cherundolo, who, I mean, I'm sure that like they're very different, but like there's not a whole lot of daylight in the resume between Cherundolo and Berhalter. Kind of the same is true with Nancy.
Yeah.
Like, does Nancy play a national team style of soccer?
It's funny that Nancy, in a way, is just like a better version of Berhalter.
Yeah.
Like Berhalter was praised for the quality of soccer being played in Columbus. The knock against Berhalter was he never turned that quality into trophies, but at the same time, Berhalter didn't have the investment that Nancy has had. So there's that. But you can't go back-to-back Columbus Crew managers, like just on principle, right? I
mean, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
Because I'm club over country.
I mean, absolutely. Speaking as an FCC fan, they should absolutely be hiring Nancy.
Because if they hire Nancy, it's a win-win whether he does well at the national team or not.
It's funnier if he does worse, but yes.
Yeah, it is funnier. You know, there's like Jim Curtin. A lot of people are talking about like David Wagner.
Who has
he's like kind of been bad everywhere except for Switzerland.
Right.
I know he got Huddersfield promoted.
Yeah.
1 year, but like Jaap Stam almost got Reading promoted 1 year. Like that's they were like that's like very, very close, you know?
Bob Bradley has almost gotten a couple of teams promoted.
Yeah, Gregg Berhalter almost got Hammarby promoted. Actually, I don't think he was very close to getting them promoted.
I think he almost got them relegated was actually the problem.
I think he
One
did.
of the biggest clubs in Sweden.
But yeah, I mean, you know, you quit your crappy job, or you get rid of your like terrible roommate. Well, it's like, oh, gotta find somebody else. And I will tell you what I've learned in the last couple of days, because I put out so I found out that it is very, very easy to get like 1 million interactions with in like the US soccer sphere. And so like all those accounts, because I put out like one of the dumbest tweets I'd ever written. In the way to get a ton of people to like your stuff or to interact with you in the US men's national team sphere is to be like kind of like nutty in a particular way.
Yes.
And so like I don't expect any of those accounts who made their bones being like Berhalter conspiracy theorists and truthers and whatnot. I don't expect any of them to change once the next person's hired. It'll be interesting what angle they take if the person that is hired is in fact Klopp, even though I think it won't be.
Yeah. They're in such a tough position, I think, the QSMNT fans, because if an MLS manager comes in and does well, it forces them to reconcile that. And if a European manager comes in and also does poorly, they'll have to reconcile that. Or God forbid, a European manager comes in and does well, but supplements a good chunk of the roster with MLS players. That's going to have to force them to reassess things. Like, what if Klopp comes in and goes, my God, why wasn't Brandon Vasquez the starting striker on this team? He offers us X, Y, and Z that these other guys don't. That you're going to have to sort of reassess how you've been a fan this whole time. And I don't know how they're going to be able to navigate those waters. It's going to be tough.
There will be some kind of easy things to fall back on.
Okay.
MLS is definitely going to be one of them.
Yeah.
The fact that Don Garber is on the board of U.S. Soccer, I'm going to say like MLS is meddling and interfering. The lack of pro rel, preventing America from developing better players. That's going to be something that they go into. There's going to continue to be American players that go back to MLS for big paychecks. They're going to be able to talk about that.
True.
So there's going to be a lot. And then they're just going to say like, oh, well, Klopp took the job because he knew he was going to be overpaid and like nothing was going to be expected of him. And he was just going to be able to coast on it. But he's just running cover for U.S. Soccer, who refuses to make any change.
Ooh, that's good. They're papering over the cracks with a Jurgen Klopp hire. So then let me ask you this. As an FC Cincinnati fan, should I be relieved or offended that Noonan's name is not coming up often?
Oh. I guess relieved.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad nobody has noticed that he has put together a better coaching job than Steve Cherundolo. Cherundolo, by the way, a lifetime youth manager in Germany until he took the Las Vegas Lights job, which at that point they had become a sort of soft affiliate of LAFC, put together a horrific season, and then became the manager of LAFC. Has been successful, yes, but not as successful as one Pat Noonan.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they won 6 games. They went 6 wins, 3 draws, and 23 losses. The Las Vegas Lights.
Not good.
Now he has been very successful at LAFC.
Yes.
He's had certainly like one of the best rosters in the league. So he's done it's hard. Yeah, I'm not a close LAFC watcher, so I'll assume he plays at least some part in their success.
Yes, but also getting like Gareth Bale on a BS retirement deal, TAM deal, and things like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they get players taking, cheaper deals to get to play there and whatever. But, it's every successful manager to some degree needs to have good players.
Yeah.
So I don't really hold it against him. It really feels like his name is being mentioned a lot by journalists that have sources. So
Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be Trundle, right? He's literally the only name that keeps coming up.
So the last piece, the last thing I want to say on the coaching search is even like during Gregg's tenure, there were some folks who kind of blamed the equal pay agreement with the women's team, saying like, oh, well, now they have pay parity between the men's team and the women's team. It's just Gregg is like you pay a top tier women's coach, you get a mid tier men's coach at the same money or whatever.
Right.
Gregg and Vlatko were not on pay parity.
Correct.
Nor should they have been. You know, or maybe they should. I don't know.
Oh,
but I would say
I'll
say this: Vlatko did not deserve like what Emma Hayes is getting.
Right.
But nobody. I have not seen anything that requires
correct
the women's coach and the men's coach to make the same salary. And nobody who has said that U.S. Soccer is somehow required to pay the men's coach and the women's coach the same, none of them, as far as I've seen, have produced a single document or rule or anything that says that. I think people are just saying it.
Yeah.
And I find I don't like it because, well, one, it lets U.S. Soccer off the hook. But two, I think more importantly, it puts some of the blame on, well, if you don't like who the men's coach is, you can be mad at the women.
Yeah.
And that's real shitty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like maybe Emma Hayes should make as much as Jurgen Klopp.
Right.
I don't know.
That's the thing. There's a better way to do this, which is pay the women's manager $10 million a year as well.
I mean, or I would just say, like, you know, they made Emma Hayes the highest paid women's coach in the world, I think. And why don't we just celebrate that? Right.
That's a pretty cool thing.
And then you just pay whatever it takes to get the men's team coach that's the best fit.
Yeah.
Like, they're separate things. They just are.
They are. And the player pay scale is also very different as well, because the men's club salaries are much higher. So it was easier for the men to give in that situation. But I think it's Alexi Lawless who said that absolutely categorically there is no policy at U.S. Soccer that requires the coaches to be paid the same. But he does bring up the good point, which is it does become a bit of an optics issue for U.S. Soccer after they did make the point of the two of them making the same, that they would then go change that, which is fine, and we can deal with that later. It probably is something to think about.
Well, but it should be. It should be something you think about.
Yeah.
Right? Just, if you're going to pay a man more than a woman, or vice versa, you should not be ashamed of justifying why you're doing that.
Right.
Right? Like, that's what fairness is.
Yeah, right.
Or it's a version of fairness, right?
Yeah.
Because like even like the Equal Pay Act or whatever, it doesn't say like all men and all women must all be paid exactly the same thing. Right. It just said that when you pay them differently, it can't be because of their gender, right? So as long as you're not embarrassed to explain why you're paying somebody more, you should be fine with it. And if you are embarrassed to explain it, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Right.
Or make the hire, and then the next press release you send out is Emma Hayes has been given, quite a big pay raise for her job so far with the women's team, or maybe the Olympics goes well, right? And you can use that as cover for giving her an $8 million pay increase or something. I don't know. Yeah. I'm glad we touched on that point as well. We did mention this, the Yedlin story by Carter. Fantastic. Go read it. It'll make you feel really good about the club. I do just want to read, I think they're two separate quotes because I'm assuming they happened at two separate times, but reading them back to back is awesome. He said, "My daughter loves it. referring to the city of Cincinnati. My son loves it. My wife loves it. And the club in general. And just the club in general. They care so much about the families, which I really appreciate because I've been in clubs that show no attention to the families. Next quote. I didn't know this was going to be the perfect move for me. And it was a perfect move for me. So, hey, that feels good to be an FC Cincinnati fan in here. DeAndre Yedlin, somebody that I remember being the spunky youngster in the 2014 World Cup team, playing for our team and really loving it. It's cool. If you're a soccer fan in the city of Cincinnati, it's a really cool story to get to read.
Yeah, another cool thing that made you happy to see is that I think on our last episode, I was really annoyed that Miles would miss the Chicago Fire game.
Yes.
He will not.
Hey.
So the only league game he's going to miss for the Olympics is July 20th at Red Bull.
Hey.
Which, we'll take it.
I will take it. It's a shame because we're going to watch that game.
We're going to be at that game.
We'll be at that. Oh, yeah, we do eventually watch all of the games. We'll be at that game, but that's my only gripe there. But yeah, he'll be missing. If any other games, they will be Leagues Cup games. So, fair sacrifice in the grand scheme of things.
I mean, given that we saw a depleted team against Columbus last year.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a potentially depleted team against Red Bulls this year. If that game goes bad, that's our last away day.
Or just next year, we book Miami and just accept what it will be.
Gotta get those Patreon numbies up.
Yeah, it's a good point. Actually, it's going to be Nashville. Then very quickly, I want to just mention this one. Steven Jimenez called up with the Mexico U18 team. Exciting
Vamos.
to see. I love it. Yeah, obviously, U.S. soccer fans, given how long we just talked about the national team there. But no, this is what I want for FC Cincinnati players. I want them thriving, succeeding, and accepting any and all national team call-ups that come their way. This is a really cool moment.
Yeah, I think Steven has also been in some kind of like unofficial U.S. camps.
Yeah.
At various times. But I will tell you, if he's on FC Cincinnati, I want him to play for whatever national team will have him, which treats him the best and whichever he feels most committed to. Because my number one thing is for the players on our team is, their personal happiness and development, both as people and players. And so I am not going to get. I would not hold it against him if I'd be very happy for him if he ultimately did, choose to go to Mexico's system permanently and got into that senior team. Obviously he's got quite a ways to go there, but
yeah,
I think this is very good news.
Yeah. I didn't realize how much he's bounced back and forth, so this is fun. In 2022, he was called up to the United States U15 training camps, so no games or youth friendlies there, but came up to the camps. Later in 2022, he was called up to the Mexico U16s for training camps. And then in May 2023, he was called up to the United States U16s for the U16 International Dream Cup, where he did actually make 3 appearances. So this will be his 4th youth national team call up. And every time it is for a different team than the team he represented the camp before. So that's fun. If people are wondering about cap ties, youth is the Wild West. You can go play for any youth national team that you can in any way, shape, or form qualify for, I think.
I think that in competitive tournaments like a U17 World Cup, you become, I think, provisionally cap tied. To a federation, okay. So I think
for a FIFA tournament,
I think that you would have to do that one-time switch.
That's right.
Like you don't have to weight or anything, because you don't become permanently cap tied through youth competitions. But I do think that there's a provisional cap tie.
That's right.
I don't think any of the stuff that I don't think there's anything that like Steven has done that would even do that.
Yeah.
I do think he's maybe I don't know if like U18 would that, because he's an 07.
Yeah.
So he's maybe playing like up 1 year.
Oh yeah.
If 18 would be like 06 births, but
yeah,
I don't really know. I'm not a youth knower, not a youth follower. So
I always find that weird, and I know it's weird that I find it weird, but man, if that's not your job, I find it very, like, especially like college football guys following high school recruits and stuff like that. Oh man, just awful Jeff Ruby vibes. Not a fan. But also on the cap tying at the senior level, FIFA changed the rules back in 2022, where if you make 3 or fewer appearances before the age of like 21 for the senior national team and aren't called up again for 3 more years, you're allowed to switch to a different national team. It's to prevent those shitty instances where national teams would cap tie a guy just so he couldn't go play for a different national team. So yeah, fun cap rules for international players.
You could also, so I think that a big thing about that is that you could play in with the 23, the under 21, the 3 games before you're 21. I don't think that they have to all be friendlies either. Like I think you could even appear in like a qualifier.
Yes.
And still not get cap tied.
It's the only ones that would permanently cap tie you are World Cups or continental competitions. So the Gold Cup or the Copa America, that would lock you to that national team. But World Cup qualifiers or friendlies or I'm going to guess nations leagues, those won't permanently lock you away.
Anyway, we're a little outside of kind of rules I've studied or read in any degree. So
yes.
Just we're going off of like half remembered articles that were read like 3 years ago. So sorry if we got anything wrong there.
We are directionally correct.
Yep. That the rules did change and
relatively recently.
And you can switch under some circumstances.
When you're quote unquote young. Yes. Yeah. Perfect. Hey, what more do you need? Grayson. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking at the time. I'm looking at our topics. Grayson.
Let's knock a couple Patreon questions out and get out of here.
Let's do that. Okay, let's do that in part 2, and then part 3 we'll bring the intern on to look at Charlotte, and we'll call it a postcast. So part 2, Patreon questions. Let's go. Before we get to the next part of the episode, I do want to tell you about our sponsor, Cincy Shirts, which is now the home of official Cincy postcast merch. This is so exciting, and we really never thought we'd see the day, and yet here we are, alive and actually seeing the day. Cincy Shirts has been with FC Cincinnati from the beginning. They've been with the Post for ever now, from the beginning. Our very first sponsor. So happy to have them along for this journey. There are 6, count them, 6 different shirts available at this time of recording that you can purchase from their website for real life. This is, again, a real thing that you can do. As I'm sure you know, but I will remind you, they have 3 retail locations, including Fort Mitchell, Loveland, and Oakley Hyde Park, where in those locations, they can print on demand. If they don't have the size of something you want, you can print on demand. I assume this means postcast shirts as well. Give it a shot. Let me know how that goes. If, for some reason, you do not want to purchase one of our shirts, I won't hold it against you. You can use promo code ThePostCincy. That's all one word, all caps, ThePostCincy for 10% off your next order. This also works with Postcast shirts, so please don't pay full price. Make sure you knock 10% off for yourself on that one. Spread the code far and wide, I guess, and let them know about Cincy shirts and let them know about the podcast while you're at it. Otherwise, the code doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, a huge thank you to Cincy Shirts for sponsoring this episode and so many before it. And if I do see you out there with a t-shirt, I will be embarrassed for you, but I will probably give you a high five and tell you well done. So again, thank you to Cincy Shirts. Thank you to you for buying shirts and using that promo code. All right, we are back and we are ready with your July Patreon questions. Just a couple of them for now because I always forget, and I know I can schedule these, and I always forget to post the question in the Patreon, like the post to solicit the question. So if you haven't asked your July question, hey, post is up. Please ask a question. If you would like to ask a question or are not a member of the Patreon, hey, here's what we ask. $2 a month. That's all it is. It gives you nothing. You can ask a question that we'll probably answer on the podcast, and your name gets highlighter pink in the Discord. If you're a member of the Patreon and your name is not highlighter pink, let me know. I can fix that. It always seems to work a little glitchy if you've already been in the Discord server. So I can handle that. But
also,
that's
you
it.
can give to the Patreon and not join the Discord. That's also fine.
And you can join the Patreon and not ask a question, which makes our lives really easy as well. But it's your God-given right to do that. So again, if you do that, though, thank you. We're very appreciative of everybody who has done it. And speaking of people that have done it, Joshua Burke asks, I'm going to feel like this is a Chief-related question because Chief isn't here. Josh asks, what do you guys like to do for vacations? Beaches, boating on a lake, cabin in the woods, visiting other cities, cruises, event-centric trips like sports, music festivals, or Broadway shows? Ooh, I feel like that last one is somebody has taken a peek at the New York agenda, but Grayson, what is the dream Grayson vacation? Let's say it's a week long. You get 1 week away.
So I would say not a cruise, not like event centric. I don't like having my hands tied too much when I'm on like vacation.
You're not going to go to like a 3-day Lollapalooza type thing or something.
No. But like after there, like basically like I just pick a destination and then like what are the things that you like to do there?
Okay.
like we do, vacations that it's like, oh, we haven't, if you go to like the Pacific Northwest, there's like, a couple of big cities and like a handful of national parks and just do all those things.
Yeah. What's your thought on doing the stereotypical tourist thing in a city that you've not been in before?
I like to limit that. The way I like to visit cities is I like to just try to get as close as possible to like what would I do if I just lived here. So like something that I've done or you just focus on like a neighborhood, like a place you stay, and it's like, we'll just check out what the local restaurants are, hop to a couple of bars. If there's like a music venue or something nearby, maybe check that out.
Yeah.
touristy stuff you can kind of see on, you can see pictures of it. Like if you go to Paris, you'll see a lot of the stuff just by
being
around.
City. Yeah.
But like, if something's worth going on its own, like just because it's touristy doesn't mean you like have to avoid it.
Right.
Like
right.
Some of the great like art museums or whatever.
Right.
Like going to see like
some great
David,
historic thing. Yes.
Like seeing David up close is like kind of a breathtaking experience.
Yeah.
So like I would highly recommend doing it. Like seeing
if you're in the city, right.
Right. Seeing the sunrise in Machu Picchu is really super cool. And so like, and then 15 minutes later there's like 20,000 people around you.
Right.
Like it
like, sure, you could have the cool local experience at the dive in Lima, or you can go to the one spot that you're probably never ever going back to again in your life.
I would say the one trend when I travel is trying to cram too much in. Like being like, oh, like we'll go to like one city too many.
Yep.
Or stuff like that.
So I think for me, when it was just me and my wife, it was all about relaxation. Vacation was a relaxing experience. We would pepper in like check out some cool stuff, go to a nice restaurant because I find that relaxing, right? But it was never like cram as many activities and tours and things like that in. It was like, hey, we're going to spend this whole day at the beach and then this whole day at the beach. But I love a cabin, like whatever is relaxing, I'm all about it. Now with kids, this has changed a little bit. So we still do the beach thing, but it's all built around like their schedules because they're very little right now. But next year we're planning on, and we're still in the very early stages of this, but do plan on traveling international with what will then be a 7 and 5 year old. So we'll see how that goes. But it is something that we have wanted to do, is to make sure that they were well traveled, well experienced, familiar with the world at a young age as quickly as possible. So I'll let you know how it goes. They're going to have the finest chicken tenders in Paris, the finest hot dogs of Rome. It'll be, we'll see how it goes. I say all that, and we're going back to Disney World later this year. So cool. If Messi and friends were in Cincy for the game, what would the score have been? Still 6-1. This comes from Titus Plank.
4-2.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, that was, for all intents and purposes, their first choice defense. They would have had Jordi Alba as a wingback instead, but he's not necessarily a defensive powerhouse.
And like Aviles, I think, was held out for injury reasons, but like, you can't this isn't like, we're not doing like some type of crazy time theory where like you change something and it also changes like all the stuff that happened before it somehow.
Right.
Like I'm going to assume that he would be injured whether Messi and Suarez were available.
And that's really,
or not.
It's Alba, Suarez, and Messi is really what we're saying. What if in the abstract they were in the starting 11 for this team, or at least available? Would it have changed anything? I think the offense still would have feasted, but I do think it's fair to say that between Messi and Suarez and their other attacking pieces, they would have got a couple more. So yeah, I think it's a funny one, but I'll stand by the fact that we absolutely would still be winning that one. And then finally, I'll wrap us up here with Tim Sears asking, what is the best food at TQL? And I'll say I never worked at TQL, but given the size of the complex that they have out there in Eastgate, I bet they have a pretty good cafeteria, though from what I hear, the employees don't get away from their desks all that often, if ever. So maybe the best food at TQL is the snacks you bring from home. Unless he means the stadium. Grayson, what is the best thing you've eaten at the stadium?
So this is a tough one because I really do not eat at the stadium.
Yeah.
Basically ever.
On principle. We respect that.
But I did have the Lucho burger.
Ooh.
And from Sammy's in the First Financial Club. And that was very good. But like I've heard like you tell me like Gomez is available there. It's probably pretty good food, although I've heard that like
the quality's fallen
reduced.
Off.
They've fallen off a bit from what they give you. I enjoyed those Noonan 7-layer nachos in the Pitch View Club in the US Open Cup.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say like, I mean, certainly in the First Financial Club, Sammy's is the way to go.
Yeah.
Over the other. Although I'll tell you,
ooh,
it takes weirdly a long time to get it. I don't know why. And it comes out super hot. But the buffalo chicken mac and cheese on the other end of the First Financial Club, actually pretty good.
Okay.
It's not huge or anything, but it's actually pretty good.
Okay. That's interesting. I think for me at the stadium, I've got a bunch of different answers for this. For the regular concourse, the best thing I've had at the regular standard concourse, yes, Gomez is great, whatever. You can get that outside of the stadium and for more food for about the same price. Is a serve yourself, grab and go type thing. There is a beef and broccoli burrito that was like $6 and was the size of an old school Chipotle burrito that literally just had rice, beef, and broccoli in it. It was so good. If I find it again, I will eat it again. It was so good. I really liked, and this is very weird, the breakfast they served at the New York Red Bulls playoff watch party, because that game kicked off at noon. They did a brunch beforehand. It was actually really good pancakes there in honor of one Brandon Vasquez. But the best food is by far the spread that I've had. The spread at Pitchview, because there are multiple buffet lines, multiple dessert lines, the free and open bar. If you ever get the opportunity to purchase Pitchview seats, do it. Factor in a couple of things. What would dinner cost you if you were going out before the game? And what would a nice seat cost you? So take like the price of a First Financial Club seat and the price of dinner, and then factor that into the price of the ticket, because it's basically what you're getting. All of your drinks are comped. They have the spread of like desserts is remarkable. It'll be like pudding cups, cakes, pies, cookies, brownies, all sorts of stuff. They've got like one of the buffet lines is like kind of more stadium food with chicken tenders and build your own dogs and ice cream from UDF that you can take. And then the other side is like really nice salads and little sandwiches. And there's always La Rosa's pizza there and things like that. It's wild. If you ever see one of those tickets go for like $100, it's totally worth it, I would say. With everything you get, it's real nice. So that's probably the best thing I've had, is just all of the things at the second most expensive ticket in the stadium. There's your answer.
I can tell you the worst thing
anyone's
ever had in the stadium was, I think it was whenever LAFC came here.
Okay.
Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Like 21, maybe?
Yep.
I got some type of like flatbread in the First Financial Club.
Okay.
I feel like it was just like kind of like a piece of like kind of hard bread, like lightly dusted with some kind of oil, and like 3 pieces of arugula on it.
Oh, delicious.
And it was like $12 or something. Like it was like I was like what is going on here?
They forgot the rest of the food. Oh my god.
It's like this is like the pita that you take backpacking.
It's the Kroger pita. I will say I have been served, this was early on, I was served a soft pretzel that was literally frozen in the middle. So that was not good.
Yeah. Yep. I hear the pretzels are better.
The pretzels have gotten much better. The pretzels they have now, pretty damn good. I will say though, it's tough to beat for what is, in my opinion, the best soft pretzel in the city is whatever they're doing at the Cincinnati Zoo. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know who their vendor is. Those are the best soft pretzels in the city. It's so good. So yeah, or maybe I'm just super hungry when I'm eating one. Well, there you go. Thank you for the couple of questions here. Again, if you have thoughts, they don't have to be soccer. Ask them in the Patreon. And if you want to ask a question, you have to pay us a couple bucks. And that's super cool. And it helps us keep doing the show. And it helps me justify all of this to my wife and kids. So thank you all for supporting us. Let's go over to part 3 where we have the intern Luke did some homework on Charlotte. We'll preview, predict those games, and we'll get you out of here. All right, and here we are in the final part, joined once again by intern Luke to help us preview the match this weekend. Luke, I got to ask, how you doing?
Doing great.
The listener cannot hear this, but I can see this. How is your cat doing?
This is my brother's cat.
Oh, okay.
He recently got married and is on his honeymoon right now, and I get to cat sit.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the cat for a second. It's a big development for your cat. No, that is great. Cat sitting is always a dicey proposition. I just feel like cats can be slow to take up the new location of the litter box, and you got a mess on your hands if you're not careful. That's very brave of you. Okay, good. Oh, well, awesome. Well, I'm glad you've taken some time away from pet sitting to talk to us about the match this weekend. FC Cincinnati hosting the Charlotte FC. Luke, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Let's get right to it. I need a couple of fun facts about the city of Charlotte to sort of whet my appetite here.
All right. So as many know, Charlotte falsely claims the title of the Queen City.
Okay.
And so the origin was named after Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, consort of King George III of England. That's where we get that from, which is just silly because we're the Queen City, but whatever.
So if you watched House of the Dragon recently, you would know that consort does not bestow the title of queen on you.
That's an even better fact.
It's stolen valor.
Charlotte is the site of the first documented discovery of gold in the U.S. In 1799, a 12-year-old Conrad Reed found a 17-pound rock that turned out to be gold.
Damn. Well done.
Also, the NASCAR Hall of Fame is located in Charlotte, solidifying the city's status as the motorsports capital of the United States.
Huh.
For those NASCAR fans out there.
You know, I'm not a NASCAR guy, but if you had asked me what I thought the motorsports capital of the U.S. was, I foolishly would have said Daytona, Florida. I don't know if this is something that Charlotte has always had and I'm the ignorant one here, or if they have once again stolen some valor that doesn't belong to them.
Don't check my sources. I could be wrong.
No. I know for a fact the Hall of Fame is there. I didn't know that they were that entwined with it. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. So a
You know what they're
sporting
not
capital.
the capital of?
Oh, what's that?
Having a top tier tennis tournament.
Boom. That's for damn sure. Despite their best efforts. Damn. Luke, those are some good fun facts. Which is your favorite?
I like the gold one, a 17-pound rock. That's like a significant deal. Like a lot of gold mine in the U.S. That's in Charlotte. That would be one that I like tell people about if I lived in Charlotte.
Do you think that kid got to keep the whole thing? Like
Oh,
what?
absolutely not. No, there's no
What
way.
happens to the 17-pound rock? Just family members taking hacks at it with a pickaxe.
Well, that was in my land. You see,
Right,
so
right. Becomes a whole thing. You got to report it on your taxes. Ugh, that's
$17.99. You think IRS is coming after you?
Yes. Hey man, we fought a war about this. Oh man, I love it. Okay, so we've got a fake city, is what I'm hearing, that is ready to steal wealth from the common collective. So okay, I'm primed and ready to hate them. They've stolen the Queen City moniker. They've stolen the Queen title. In this case, I'm prepared to hate them.
They stole Chiquita Banana.
They did. They can have Chiquita Banana. They can have all of our problematic Fortune 500s or whatever. Luke, tell me something about their soccer team. I am ready to hate this team.
So I have watched their goals, the goals that they have scored, and goals against them. They play very specific.
All of them?
Like recent goals of like 10 each way, maybe.
Wow.
Just to see where things are going. They play a very specific and boring form of soccer. They sit in a low block like the entire game is what it looks like. They don't want anyone scoring on them, and it works to the point where they have the most clean sheets in MLS. They have 9 clean sheets this season. And then 80% of their goals are from open play, and almost all of them are in transition. FC Cincinnati's big problem is that set pieces, they just kind of have a floating ball into the air, has just been tearing us apart recently. Mm-hmm. I think we match up well defensively against them. I feel like our guys can generally do better coming out of transition than they can do in set pieces.
Okay.
So yeah.
Luke, this is the most soccer analysis we might have ever had on the podcast.
Oh, I have more. Don't worry.
I wasn't ready. You have more? I was not ready for this. All right, let's keep going.
Also, they normally play in a 4-2-3-1.
Okay.
They switched up to a 4-3-3 against Inter Miami, which is their most recent match.
Whoa.
I would say is maybe due to Inter Miami, maybe due to players out. But what it did is it put my player to watch, Ashley Westwood, is a central midfielder. In that 4-3-3 formation, he sits right in the middle of it. He is their best player. He played for Burnley for 6 seasons and played for Aston Villa for 5.
Okay.
I would say he's probably their best player. And he sits him and he puts him right in the middle, and he's the one feeding everything and controlling everything, is what I say, what I think. So I'm going to assume that they keep the 4-3-3. And so I think we'll see, especially with Wobodo out, I think that might be something they could take advantage of with him.
Interesting. Yeah. Is Westwood a recent acquisition for them? Is this his first year with them?
It's not his first year. It's his second, I believe. Get out of the trash.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, wow, Luke, that is really well done. Okay, so I see what you mean looking at some of these stats here. They have, other than the Crew, which the Crew also have the fewest number of games played in the league, they have the best goals against record that I am seeing out there, 23 goals against, which is pretty remarkable. Columbus is at 18, but again, has played 2 fewer games than Charlotte has. But Charlotte has only scored 24 goals themselves. They have a goal differential of a whopping 1. Yeah, this does scream boring team. Just like super boring soccer. In watching any of their games or the highlights thereof, how did the field look? I remember them having an insanely bouncy field.
Well, the field situation's weird. I'm currently watching Colombia and Uruguay playing in Charlotte on grass. They have a turf field, so we might see them keep the grass.
Well,
or they might.
Isn't the game here?
What?
Yeah, the game is here. I was just curious about their field. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was in Charlotte, and I was like, this is going to be interesting. Are they going to rip up the grass to play on turf? Which we've seen before with like Atlanta, I think, in the Copa. It took out the grass for Atlanta to play on turf, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, the grass turf situation is bizarre. Charlotte, again, the game is here, but Charlotte has had a weirder situation as well because they were one of the few NFL teams that played on natural grass right up until they got an MLS team and they tore up the natural grass and put in the artificial field. So they're all over the place with this one. Weird situations. Okay, so Wes, what is your player to watch? I see he's got 2 goals on the season, but he's more their facilitator. I like it. They don't score a lot of goals, so that is a decent chunk, as it were, on the season. Anything else you need to tell us about this team?
I'll wait till the score predictions.
Ooh, okay. Well, then, Grayson, let me ask you, vibes going into this one, how are we feeling?
I think we're feeling pretty good. We get to play Kubo in the midfield probably, which means we get to play, start Kelsey probably up top, I think. Do you go back to Orishano and Lucho together behind the striker?
That's tough, right? Or do you go back to the Kelsey Dotto up top and just sort of resume what you were doing pre-Miami? Ooh.
I think that I would run the same thing out, because I think if we're going to have, obviously without Obi, but I think since Charlotte's a defensive team, you're going to expect to have a lot of the ball.
Yeah.
So having Assad and Orishano and Lucho and Kubo all out there, like, I think that's probably your best chance of breaking them down.
Yeah. And just about as much talent as we can possibly put on the field. Like, obviously without Obi, but you put Kubo there, put Kelsey back up top. That's the most offensive talent we can realistically put on the field at any one time. I buy it. So, Luke, if you were Pat Noonan, who are your 3 center backs in this one?
I think you could. So for some reason, he doesn't like to start Keller. Like, it really, he really likes Alves there more, which I don't think would be an awful decision here, because my worry about Alves is that his ability to stop headers is just not there. Well, that's Kip's better at that, but that doesn't really seem to be an issue. And I say that, and then that's how they'll score probably is off like a header to some bum they're playing at striker.
That's how it goes every time.
Probably see Alves Powell starting and then Kip subbing in. Do we play Wednesday?
No, today's Wednesday. So we play Saturday.
No, like the Wednesday after this.
Oh, game. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
It's Chicago at home?
Yes.
So, I mean, that would make sense for me to see Kip not starting. I think we probably see Alves Powell. And then the 2 obvious center backs, Miles and Ian.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But you bring up a good point. It is funny that Keller doesn't get a start, that the default is either Yedlin or Powell as that right center back spot. I do wonder what the thought is. Is it that they trust the more senior guys more? Because Keller never looks bad, I don't think.
I would say he looks good. I love watching Keller. He looks like a dog out there.
I can't tell if I'm extremely biased or not. I've never seen Keller make a single mistake in my life, personally.
He got cooked last game.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. But, you know, we sit here and fret about the lack of center backs with Miazga and Hagelin's injuries, and then we won't actually start one of the handful of center backs we actually do have. It is funny, you know. I don't know. Like, if Hagelin had not gotten hurt, would Powell still be starting ahead of him? Like, I'm really curious what the thought is.
To Luke's point, Patrick Aguimang is out, going to be out with a red card.
Nice.
He's their big, tall forward.
Yeah.
And they don't really have a striker who is, I mean, they have other forwards, but they don't have another one who is as physically imposing.
Yeah. Save Keller for Chicago then. Maybe that's the spin I'll accept in this situation. Okay, cool. So that, I think we all agree that it's essentially run exactly the same thing back, sub Kelsey for Kubo up top and put Kubo in for Obi because he is suspended. Pending any other mystery injuries that we don't know about, should just be doing the same thing we did against Miami. I think that makes perfect sense here.
Except 6-0 this time.
Yeah, that would be nice. Just absolutely obliterate Charlotte's really nice goals against record. That would be really good. So that leads us, well then, and maybe Grayson, that is your prediction. Give us a scoreline for this one.
I'll go with a nice tidy 2-0 to the FC.
2-0 to the FC at home. It would be nice. Luke, what do you got for us?
I got 2-1. Or no, I'm going to change that. 1-0 FC Cincinnati.
Whoa.
Because I think this game, if I'm Pat Noonan, I'm telling my players something very specific. We are going to score first. We have to make them the aggressor because they can't beat a low block. They only score in transition. We need to score first, and then we need to play their game. Score first, put in a low block, don't let them score. That's what I need to be focusing about. 1-0 FC Cincinnati.
Interesting. If that's the strategy, which I don't disagree, I want Keller in there instead of Powell. But otherwise, I'm on board.
We'll see Keller. There's no way he doesn't come in.
I'm going to predict 3-0 for the FC. Kip Keller gets a goal in this one. How about that? Just because I'm just going to keep this train going. Keller subs in, gets a late goal in the second half. It'll be good. We're all predicting wins, which means FCC is absolutely losing this weekend. Yeah. Thank you, Luke. This was maybe the most soccer we've ever talked about in a preview of a game. I really appreciate this.
I'll do better next time. I'll talk about it less.
No, thank you. That would be that would be nice. All right. Well, Grayson, if you would like to, maybe for the last time for a while, give us our parting words of the episode.
Fuck Columbus.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. Also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to the show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.